Greetings, friends. Thank you for listening to The Hands of History, a production of the Society of Massage Archives, the only nonprofit dedicated to preserving the history of massage and bodywork. Because of people like you, the Society of Massage Archives exists. An archive is more than a collection of old papers and objects. It is a deliberate, organized effort to preserve history, the records, stories, and voices that would otherwise be discarded, damaged, or lost to time. Thanks to our Founders Club, 50 individuals who stepped up to help build the foundation for preserving the history of massage therapy, Soma's work is now underway. That support has made it possible for us to begin safeguarding the stories, documents, and artifacts that have shaped our profession. But preservation isn't a one-time act. It's ongoing work. We're building something lasting. Whether it's digitizing collections, expanding access, or integrating historical knowledge into practice and education, Soma is demonstrating how massage history matters. As a 501c3 nonprofit, we are working towards a dedicated, professionally maintained archive, one that protects our past and makes it accessible for future generations. If you believe that massage therapy's past deserves long-time care, access, and stewardship, we invite you to become a recurring contributor. Whether it's $20 a month or any amount that feels right to you, every gift, big or small, goes a long way in fulfilling our mission. Your monthly contribution helps sustain Soma's operations year-round, so history stays alive and available for everyone in our community. History doesn't preserve itself. People do. Learn more about becoming a recurring supporter today at societyofmassagearchives.org. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the Society of Massage Archives. These views and commentaries represent the recollections of the host and guests, and as such are subject to occasional slight inaccuracies. The content here is for informational and educational purposes only. You should conduct your own historical research when determining the veracity of any statements made within.
Greetings and welcome to the Hands of History podcast, a production of the Society of Massage Archives, where we delve into the rich tapestry of massage therapy's past, explore its evolution, and share the stories that have shaped this vital practice. Today is Monday, March 2nd, 2026. I am your host, Kirby Clark Ellis, and I'm joined today with Kerry Jordan. Kerry retired from a 20-year career in massage therapy in 2023. When she was practicing, she focused on oncology and palliative massage therapy. She has provided massage therapy and taught in hospitals and clinical settings throughout the Washington, D.C. metro area and around the world for adult and pediatric palliative care patients and other patients with complex needs and high symptom burdens. Before training as a massage therapist, Kerry owned and operated a successful yoga studio in Boston for 15 years. Kerry effortlessly weaves the principles of yoga and meditation into her teaching and service work with yogis, massage therapists, and healthcare providers. She has worked as Healwell's operations director since 2014, a position in which she coordinates strategy, communications, and logistics for Healwell's education and service programs. She leads Healwell's development and fundraising activities and interfaces with the finance team at Healwell's partner facilities. In addition to her duties as operations director, Kerry is a teacher for Healwell and is an essential part of the curriculum development team. She brings 20 years of experience as an instructor and has an extensive background in teaching pathology and physiology and adapting massage therapy for special populations. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So here at the podcast, we like to start at the beginning. Tell me, what pulled you into the world of massage therapy?
I think probably like a lot of people, it was a pretty circuitous route for me. I actually started my career in the world of .com when that was a thing. And when the bubble burst, it burst for me and everybody else. And so I was doing a lot of yoga just to manage the stress of not being able to find another job and trying to figure out what I was going to be and do. So I fell into becoming a yoga teacher and then owning a studio and then teaching other people how to be yoga teachers from there. And, one of the things that yoga did for me was I felt like yoga introduced my body to me in a way I had never known it before. It was as if I had only ever been living in the foyer and somebody was like, oh, no, it's a mansion. Like there's all these other spaces. There's all this other room. It can do all these incredible things. And so that was what motivated me to teach yoga to other people. And even with that motivation, I just watched yoga be another way for people to be antagonistic to their bodies and mean to themselves rather than kind of this beautiful welcoming experience that I had had. And, I always love doing hands-on adjustments. I feel like one of the things that's really sadly seems to be lost and is becoming less and less common is really good hands-on adjustment in yoga. So I already was kind of accustomed to putting my hands on people and trying to guide and help them feel their body as it could be. And so I had a student who was a massage therapist and who was talking about what you're doing is this and the quality of touch. I'm learning in massage school about this and that. And I thought, oh man, maybe that's how I can show people how great their body is. Like maybe I have to actually just make you feel good. Maybe you have to just be still and quiet and I can show you how great it is in there. So from there I went into massage school and private practice and realized that it was of course not that simple either. That's the long short version of how I got to become a massage therapist.
Gotcha. Awesome. I have just a few follow-ups if you don't mind, Carrie.
Yeah,
I
of
want to
course.
know, can you kind of explain to me, or perhaps even younger listeners than myself, kind of what the dot-com era was like, what really the hopes were for that, and then describe the bubble and the pop eventually that happened. Can you step back into that for a moment?
Yeah, it's so funny. I wasn't even, I lived in Boston at the time, so it wasn't even like I was in San Francisco or someplace like in, Silicon Valley where it was really happening. But, the dot-com bubble was, I love to tell you kids that the internet wasn't always a thing, right?
Right.
And and so when the all of a sudden everybody owned a company that was a virtual something. And on paper, everybody was going to make $1 million because theoretically, and to this day, I don't really understand how these investments worked or didn't work, right? But theoretically, there were millions, billions of dollars that all these angel investors who were just these billionaires who had been waiting to give young people their money. We're gonna do it. And every idea was a good idea if it involved the internet, right? And so the company I worked for was in fact one of the very first learning platforms, e-learning platforms that a college professor in British Columbia had created. But it was such a bizarre environment because, that what we've come to think of as like that Elon Musk, like move fast and break things. Like it really was this ethos of like, no idea is a bad idea. Every energy is good energy, like just more of everything, right? And, you'd go to work and there was free soda and food all over the place. And there was a foosball table in like the conference room, and everybody was young and hip, even if they were older. It was incredibly heady. And it was also, I mean, I feel like I wasn't somebody who was making like $1 million even on paper. But even in my position, it just was like, is this a thing? Like, how does this actually work at the end of the day? And in fact, it didn't. I mean, I think a lot of that money was imaginary. A lot of people spent money that was imaginary like it wasn't imaginary. And then I think suddenly all of these investors, angels or not, were like, wait, what's the ROI on you having a foosball table again? Uh, so I think the rug got pulled out from a lot of companies really quickly. Either investments dried up or it turned out their great idea was not a great idea and nobody cared. And I think that for my organization, a lot of things were being doubled. There were like 100 companies that had a learning management platform. And like, you know, there weren't enough clients. And so my company ultimately got bought by a bigger one, like that's still a company, that's still a big thing now. But again, I wasn't real high up, so I got 2 weeks of severance, which in retrospect is probably the most severance I've ever gotten from a job ever. And I like to tell people that I made half of what I had made at the .com when I started collecting unemployment. And then I made half of what I made on unemployment when I became a yoga teacher. Um, and I've been trying to claw my way back to .com money ever since.
Yeah, that's good luck. Just a couple things jumping out at me. And I may have my own timelines mixed up here, so correct me if I've got anything wrong. Do you feel like the Y2K bug panic contributed to the pop of the bubble?
Maybe, I think it really just was unsustainable spending and kind of ebullience, mostly. Certainly Y2K didn't help anything. But I think that really, yeah, it was just unreal.
Let me also ask you a follow-up about, I have a few things here, but the one that I bothered to write down was e-learning. And I might also have this wrong, but is that anything similar to like what we've seen in recent years in a lot of online learning? The stuff that Hillwell provides in education online, the stuff that a lot of schools, massage therapy was no stranger to this, that had to switch to during the COVID years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Universities and colleges, were looking at this again in 2000 and even before. And, how do we reach more students? How do we reach more students affordably? Unfortunately, probably a little of how do we pay professors less in there. Um, but yes, I think that they were really early adopters of exactly what we now think of as totally commonplace, both synchronous and asynchronous online learning is so ubiquitous now. It is hard to remember that there was a time when that was not a thing, and if you couldn't show up at a college class, you couldn't take the class.
Right. I thought of my other thing. I really loved how you described the dot-com era as a kind of every idea is a good idea, every energy is a good kind of energy, bring it all on. Kind of I'm imagining the other half of that is see what sticks and run with it. Is there anything else that you can think of that you've seen, maybe not experienced firsthand, but that you've seen that is reminiscent of that? And bonus points if it's massage therapy related, Carrie.
Woo! All right, let's see. Start a timer. No, I mean, I think certainly all bubbles are bubbles, right? I mean, the things that we now, the real estate bubble that we talk about, like all of these things. I think that there is a very human impulse to believe that a good thing can never end, and to believe that, and here's where I tie it to massage therapy, that like intention is everything. And I think it doesn't matter how good your heart is or how grand your intentions, or, I mean, I work for a nonprofit now, and let me tell you how many nonprofits shutter every single day across the country, around the globe, right? Because wanting to do a good thing isn't really enough. And I think that what we saw in the dot-com bubble that I do see still in massage therapy, and I think we've seen in is this idea that if I just want it bad enough, and the like rags to riches story of like I didn't even know what a computer was, and I just started tinkering in my garage, and the next thing I knew I was Steve Jobs, right? And I think that we really have been, I think Americans, humans, we love a fairy tale, and I think we've been fed so many of them. And I think particularly in helping professions like massage therapy, there's not a lot to cling to. You're not going to make a lot of money. You're not going to have all kinds of accolades and respect showered upon you by the average person for just walking into a cocktail party and saying that you're a massage therapist. And so I think that we've become over reliant on this story of the goodness of what I do will make it important, will carry me, will support me. And I think that that's dangerous as an individual, but I think it's really dangerous as a profession.
All right. I like that. We got deep early on, Carrie.
I'm not messing around.
That's great.
I work in end of life care. I know this could all be over like that.
Yeah, that's a good thing for us to always be conscious of.
Hmm.
Let me ask you, Carrie, it sounds like the path was really yoga really got you into this embodied living kind of path, at least towards massage therapy. I'm wondering what was the draw to yoga?
I st Here's the ugly truth about the dot-com world. It was so intense. I now know that I have, like many people, a generalized anxiety disorder. But I didn't know this when I was 20, 21, 22. And I remember dating somebody who said to me, "Do you know that not everybody wakes up and cries for a half an hour before they go to work every morning?" And I did not know that. It had not occurred to me that that was not just what being a grown up meant. And so I went to therapy, and my therapist explained to me that I was not actually dying, that I was having panic attacks, and here's what was happening. And she actually recommended that I go to a yoga class to learn pranayama, or breathing techniques, to help me manage my breathing when I was having a panic attack, to help self-regulate. And I had zero interest in yoga or anything like that. But I am a very good rule follower, and I do my homework. And so my therapist said, go to a yoga class. So I like grudgingly went to a yoga class. And it sounds fake, but it is true. The 5 minutes into that class, I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like this is it. This is a thing. And I think this is my thing. I'm supposed to be here. And it wasn't easy. It was probably the hardest hour of my life. It wasn't like, oh, it turns out because I had always been hypermobile or I had always just had this secret Zen self hiding inside of me. It was the hardest thing I'd done, but there was no question in my mind by the time I walked out of that class that that was what I was supposed to be doing with some part of my life.
Hmm. I'm going to scratch just a little bit deeper, Carrie, because I know you're not
Okay.
afraid of it now. Is there anything from that first class that you can really think of, a moment or maybe an experience that you had in that first class that you just solidified that that was the right path for you?
Oh, that's such a good question. I wonder. I think I had never been still like that. I just got lucky because again, this is when Madonna was like sort of making yoga the biggest thing in the world in the United States. And so not all yoga classes were like this, but the class I stumbled into started with 15 minutes of meditation, seated, still, silent meditation. And that had never been a thing I had done. As you can tell, I talk a lot. I grew up in New Jersey. I move very fast. I think very fast. And I had never been still in a way that felt safe. And I can't even like, I could probably hypothesize a lot knowing what I know now about how this teacher held space in a way that made it feel like a safe space for somebody who was a stranger. But at the time, I certainly had no concept of that. And so I don't know how I can't tell you how I knew, but I felt incredibly safe. And again, even though it was so hard to be still for 15 minutes and quiet, it felt like, yeah, just like a thing I had never known was available to me. And that was so full. Oh,
Right. Cool. I like that. That's a good, thoughtful answer, I think. Okay. And then also, I just wanted to touch on this too, because earlier you said something that I found so relatable, but also just so beautiful. You described it as your experience with your body as if you were living in just the foyer and there was a whole house or mansion, beyond that.
yeah.
I find, and I don't know if this is true for other practices that don't involve, yoga, tai chi, massage therapy in some form, that really get you present in your body. Like you have to practice being focused on what your body is experiencing, how what you do with your body influences what other people experience. I don't know. Do you have anything more to share on that, Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's everything, Kirby. I think it really is. I am also very fond of saying, and anybody who's heard me talk before and is listening to this podcast is gonna be like, here we go. I think that we treat this body like the dumb truck that our brain drives around. And it is not. It is, you are this body. And your skin is the surface of your brain, like your nervous system. You are not an assemblage of parts. I think this was the really hard thing about teaching anatomy and physiology, because we have to kind of disassemble the body to explain it, but we're real bad at putting that all back together and then going back to thinking of the body as like, you know, there's no such thing as an ACL, right? There's not. Like it's all contiguous tissue. It's all, and I believe it matters that you know what the ACL is, question mark, does, question mark. And I really think that the way that and I think we see this in massage therapy, certainly, but I saw it in yoga. We certainly see it in allopathic medicine. As soon as we start to take the body apart, we're real bad at putting it back together again. We're real bad at seeing it as a whole. We get specialized when we get rewarded for specializing. And so I only think about knees. I only think about the back. I only think about this. And so I think that it's a hugely detrimental as a provider, but also as a person. You are walking around in this incredible thing. You are this incredible thing. And I think that we lose so much in our personal and our professional lives when we're not keenly aware of that. And I think it's easy to do, especially if you experience pain, if you experience chronic illness, if you have chronic conditions that I don't want to out you on the podcast, but I have seen on social media that you suffer from some things like insomnia and things. I mean, what better reason to escape your body, right? When it is not feeling good, it is not a fun place to like sit in. And so I want to be clear, like I get why we disembody ourselves. And I think it is really, really, we're doing ourselves and others a huge disservice. I love what you said about like our body, my body, what I do with my body affects all kinds of other bodies as well. And so it isn't just me.
Yeah, I think it can be dangerous to disassemble ourselves. But I'm wondering if you might, this is just an idea I had. I wonder if you'd buy into this at all, Carrie, and it's totally fine if not. I love dissension. If we're going to be disassociative of our bodies, I think that it should be done in moderation and at least with intentionality behind it, because we don't do a lot of either one of those these days.
No, I mean, I was going to tease you about like, sure, that sounds easy. Nice work if you can get it, right?
Right.
Um, I think that that's really the tricky bit too. And I think that we see this in the practice of body work and massage therapy because I am using my body. I have to really be in my body, I believe, to do this work really well. And by the nature of what I'm doing, when you are and I are in a space, if you are lying on the table, I am kind of putting myself or some parts of myself aside for this time where I'm focusing with you and I'm trying to help you better, not dissociate from your body. Um, and I think like I said, I think the trick is coming back because it's real easy to just get lost outside of it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh gosh, I could go down so many rabbit holes with you, Carrie. I'm loving this so far. Let me keep us on track though, or at least try to. So, grew up in New Jersey, eventually moved to Massachusetts,
Hmm.
which is where it sounds like that's where you started your yoga and eventually becoming a yoga educator.
Yeah, I did yoga teacher training
Okay.
to teach other people to do yoga, to become yoga teachers.
Ah, yes. And that's kind of the path that at least got you face to face with that massage practitioner that
Hmm.
kind of opened that door, yes?
Yeah.
Ooh. Was the .com job the thing that moved you from New Jersey to Massachusetts?
No, I actually moved to Massachusetts because I grew up in New Jersey in a pretty rural area, and I went to college at Rutgers University. And so I had always assumed that I would live in New York City. I had my mom's extended family lived in New York City. Like, you're a kid in New Jersey, you want to be a girl in New York. But even then, New York City was unattainably expensive, and so sort of the next closest, biggest city that I could afford to move to was Boston, and so. I moved to Boston with $200 and no real plan. Uh, and, I lived in a house with 5 or 6 other women that was disgusting. And I really just, my degree is in English history and art, English literature and art history. And so I worked for the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston for a while. And again, I worked in a temp agency and I did some like reception kind of work and customer service work. And then again, I think my boyfriend's mom knew somebody who worked at this.com and like got me an interview. So, I mean, it was never my intention to do any of that.
Okay, I'm just going to ask like an oddball question here,
Mm,
Carrie. So you got a degree in what I would consider a very creative mode, art history and English lit. I've got those backwards, but and then I would assume that there's some creativity involved in working with an art museum, but then to switch to this really heady workspace with the .com and then to switch back again to something that sounds a little bit more on the creative side with yoga and massage therapy eventually. Is that an accurate description?
Well, again, I think that before yoga, I really lived in my head exclusively. But my mom was a science teacher for a million years. And my mom has always been really in love with everything that's alive and outside. My mom is feral, basically. And so we were raised, hiking is church in my family. And so I think that I was actually very physical and in the world in ways that I just didn't identify because I didn't play sports. So obviously I wasn't physical, right? Um, and I think that I love reading, I love writing, and I thought that I would be a teacher, but I don't enjoy children at all. And so I was like, well, then I guess you become a professor, right? Um, and I had the good fortune as an undergrad to have really kind, compassionate professors who either were like, I don't think you're really going to like life in academia, or who themselves were so jaded and miserable in academia that I was like, oh, that does not look like what I want to do with my life. So, the work I did at the MFA was more like customer servicey facing. I worked for the education department, sort of, but I also worked at the museum store. So, I was just kind of, I was cobbling together, but whatever part-time jobs they'd let me have there so that I could be in the museum, which I loved. And the work that I did for the .com, I was in marketing, and so I was technically again writing and sort of being creative-ish. I think in all of it, like I really did want to be a teacher. I just didn't know how you be a teacher of adults, and I really didn't know what to teach. I just liked that. So I think that in some ways, all of those jobs were weirdly related. And it wasn't, though, I think, until I found yoga that I thought, like, oh, my body is really part of this. Bodies are really part of this.
Yeah. All right. Beautiful. Thanks for picking those pieces up and stringing them together for me, Carrie.
Yeah.
Well, no, hold on. I've got another follow-up, Carrie.
I'm in.
Was there a huge culture shock moving from New Jersey to Massachusetts at the time?
Not really. I mean, I think even though I had grown up in a fairly rural area, I had gone to college in a not rural area. I had spent a lot of time in New York City. I had really identified, I think, as a kid as like the girl who doesn't belong in the small town. Like I'm supposed to be in the city. So I think that it was really exciting and fun for me. I no longer feel like that. I'm real happy for not in the cityness. But I think, yeah, no, I don't feel like it was too much culture shock. I think it was the Northeast is in some ways kind of homogenous. I feel like, you have the same, it's such a small region. Now that I live out west, it's like, oh gosh, yeah, you know, you can't be in 6 states in like 3 hours here. So, so no, I don't feel like it was a lot of culture shock.
Right. Cool. Let's go ahead and jump into it then. Take me back to your massage school, your entry level days. Where did you train and did it meet your expectations? Were there any huge shocks?
I love to tell this kind of story because I'll tell you where I didn't go to massage school, and then I'll tell you where I went because I was in Boston. The Massage Therapy Institute was there at the time, and this was the school that Ben Benjamin had founded. It
Uh,
was a great school with an amazing program. People like Tracy Walton taught there. It was really cool. And so I assumed that I would go there because I was like, well, obviously I'll just do whatever the best is. And I also, even though I was not 30 yet, I certainly was a full-grown adult with a full-time, and I mean, I did. I owned a yoga studio, I had a full-time job. And when I went to the weekend long information session that you had to attend before you could apply, I was completely turned off because Kirby, it was like they were telling you what to do there. They were gonna you had to wear a uniform. You had to go to classes when their classes were scheduled. It didn't matter if you had a full-time job, you had whatever. It was like going back to college, which of course at that point I was like, I'm only recently out of there, and I chose not to go to graduate school for these very reasons. And so forget this. And so I decided to, and I tell this story because I think this is how I think that's really important to acknowledge that this is how people go to massage school. I had a job. I didn't imagine a world in which I could have, of course, but I couldn't imagine a world in which I worked my schedule around the schedule of going to massage school. So I found a school that, even though it was almost an hour away from where I lived, they had night classes. Their schedule was incredibly flexible. You could do one class a semester if you felt like. You could just do this very sort of loosey-goosey. There were no uniforms. There was no student clinic. I could kind of write my own program. And I always try to remember that because obviously I want the standards of entry-level massage therapy education to be elevated radically from where they are now. And I really try to remember. I mean, I was somebody with a college degree. I was somebody who was comfortable in a school environment. I had always succeeded in a school environment, and I didn't want to do it for massage therapy. Now, again, part of that was also because I didn't think massage therapy was that serious. So that was one thing that was a shock when I was in massage school. Turned out I was like, oh, this is serious. I also the school that I went to was founded by a woman who was not a massage therapist. She was a polarity practitioner. And so one of the things that you had to do was that you, in addition to Swedish basically and deep tissue and myofascial and all the massagey type things, you had to do an energy modality. It was not optional. It was part of the program. And so you could either opt for, at the time that I was there, you could either opt for polarity or shiatsu.
Hmm.
So I took shiatsu because I was like, that's like real massage. Polarity is like nothing. Like this isn't real. And it blew my mind. I think that everybody should have to do some kind of energy modality right in their very first beginning of massage school because it taught me how to listen with my body and with my hands. And whether or not you believe in like chi or whatever, or auras or polarity colors or whatever, it really taught me, again, the importance of being still and being receptive and really taking in with my whole self rather than like I am palpating with my fingers, where is the biceps head, right? And so I think that that was really revolutionary for me and revelatory. I met Andrew Jordan, who is one of the greatest massage therapists and massage educators ever. There, he was one of my instructors. They were one of my instructors. I was really lucky to have them in my life. And then they later became my office mate and my sort of work wife for years, but remains like one of my mentors. And again, I cannot sing enough praise about Andrew in the world. And that too, I feel like knowing what I know now is a big revelation because I think that it is easy to imagine these smaller schools, these schools that have sort of maybe a looser looking curriculum from the outside. They're not just full of, I'm just going to say it, Kirby, they're not just full of dumb hippies
No.
like we might imagine, right? They're not full of people who don't know science, who don't do the research or, whatever. I had teachers who were like that. It was definitely a mixed bag there. And I think it was full of surprises. It was a really interesting, again, it was a thing that I thought, oh, I'll do this also. This will be a little extra side thing. Maybe I won't even become a massage therapist. I just want to know this. I want to like go to school and see what this is all about and what this is like. I also think that I went there because I was a yoga instructor, and as a yoga instructor, I already studied with Tom Myers a lot and did a lot of anatomy trained stuff as a movement teacher. And so I imagine myself going to massage school and being a sports massage therapist and, deep tissue, like structural integration work. In massage school, I learned to my massive dismay that I gave an amazing relaxation massage. And I mean, I struggled for years, Kirby, with I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stick my elbow in your glutes and fix them. And so, yeah, massage school was full of surprises for me.
All right. I love what you're talking about, some form of energy work being a requirement of the program. I think we really do a disservice whenever that we really poo-poo on energy work. At least, I'm right now I'm representing a history society, but that's part of our heritage as practitioners is the energy work. And other guests on this podcast have talked about a travesty that it's removed from the MBLEX, and you can be on either side of that argument if you want to, but I think that we really do ourselves a disservice if we don't at least acknowledge that path and those disciplines.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think this is one of the places where I feel like massage education needs more hours, more competency based, more, because I don't want you to replace ethics with polarity, obviously, right? Um, and I think that a lot of massage schools and teachers feel like they're under pressure because of the amount of time they have for a curriculum. And I mean, I think there is the stark reality, I heal well. We do a lot of hospital-based massage. I worked in a lot of hospitals. I work with a lot of people who work in hospitals across the country. If you work for a Catholic hospital and you say that you do Reiki, you will lose your job. Like it is not allowed. Um, and so I think that, we do have to be cognizant of how we talk about some of these things and what we call them or what we think we are able to do. I mean, full stop, never mind with energy work, but but I think, yeah, again, like most things, I think it's complicated. And I agree with you. I think to dismiss it out of hand as having no place doesn't make any sense.
All right, I'll buy it. Tell me really quickly a couple of lightning round questions about your entry level program. Rotating cast of instructors?
No, the person who taught anatomy was the person who taught anatomy to everybody. The person who taught massage one was the person who taught massage one. The person who taught massage two taught massage two. There were a couple, like a couple different people did business classes or whatever, but mostly it was a small school and a small kind of cast of instructors.
Okay, but not just a one and done, one instructor for the whole.
Mm-mm, no, no, no. There were probably 9 or 10.
All right, wow, awesome. Good variety, it sounds like then.
Yeah, yeah.
About textbooks or tools that were used in your program.
Oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to remember things like that. Well, we definitely had the Trail Guide to the Body, of course.
Yep.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Amazing book. I don't know if we used Ruth Warner's pathology book or not. I don't remember. I think we did,
All
but I
right.
don't remember. I guess it sort of tells you how much I used those resources that I don't really know. Yeah, lots of paper handouts. I had lots of paper handouts that the instructor either made themselves or like, photocopied from someplace.
Any big names in the industry at the time that really stick out to you, like CE providers, other school owners, board leaders? It sounds like you had an awareness of the Ben Benjamin School and Tracy Walton. Was that at the time, or did that come later, a recognition of?
No, that came much later. I really had no understanding that, I will admit, I went to therapy school with a very dismissive view of massage therapy.
Well, I mean, okay, hold on. My preference for massage therapy was Phoebe Buffet from Friends. So I thought massage school would be, all of my instructors will be like, Phoebe, it'll be a great quirky time. Whoa, Nelly.
Maybe not so much.
Yeah, not so much. So this goes out to any potential students.
It's not like that, you guys.
It's not like that. A lot more involved than what I thought going into it. But thankfully so,
Yeah.
I it was a reckoning, I think, for myself, but not something that I couldn't handle, thankfully.
Well, and I mean, at the risk of veering off of our lightning round into something else, I think that, you know, this was true of yoga teacher trainings, both the ones I've taken and the ones that I've taught. And going to massage school and teaching at a massage school, it is a deeply personal, transformational thing.
Mm,
Um, and it really, I think that that's a thing that I know some schools are pretty talk about this, but I think most schools really don't. And I don't know if you can kind of prepare a candidate for this really, but I think we might undersell like how much personal work you have to do or that you're going to be suddenly faced with in these kind of programs.
yeah. I'm tempted to say not everybody follows through on
Uh,
that person work when they finish.
yeah, no, 100%.
I'm curious, when your program came to an end, Carrie, it sounds like you went in with this idea of maybe sports massage would be really something that you'd really want to follow in through, but you found that you were really keen at giving more relaxing, therapeutic in that kind of way work. Is there a path that you tried to follow in terms of like continuing education, people like that, modalities that you maybe latched onto in the early days?
Yeah, I really, really fought relaxation massage with every fiber of my being. And I continued to do the work that I had been doing with Tom Myers. That's when I discovered Gil Headley and his work. And I mean, I want to be I did a ton of continuing ed with Eric Dalton. I want to give those, I feel like there are some people in our profession who get a bad rap who are, they're not saying what we think they're saying always. Or as in such a limited way. I mean, I think, Gil Headley is an amazing example of somebody who is doing a sort of like, this precise anatomic work and is really seeing the body as a whole, is seeing humans as a whole, is like he talks at length about the difference between a cadaver and a live person, in a way that you would think would be obvious, but is not, and who really has a deep respect for the body and the soul and all of this whole messy human thing. I think that Tom Myers has been reduced to a sort of anatomy guy, a sort of structural integration guy. The classes and work that I did with him was way more complex than that, way more nuanced than that. But if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And at the time, I just really wanted to be a hammer. And I mean, really, the path that took me where I ended up was that I had already, as a yoga teacher, it is fun for me. The creative part of this for me was how do I adapt anything for everyone, right? And so I had ended up, by the time that I was a massage therapist, my yoga teaching, I taught lots of like pre and postnatal classes. I taught lots of chair yoga. I taught at senior centers. I taught tons of adaptive types of yoga and how to teach adaptive yoga. And so I had a group of really dedicated students from those classes who, when they found out I was a massage therapist, wanted to come and get massage therapy from me. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I can't, I can't help you. You're fragile. You're this, you're that, right? But of course, I'm not dumb enough to say that out loud to them. So these people are on my table. I'm sweating bullets. I'm like in a complete panic. I remember one of the weekend warrior athletes that I worked with at the time was diagnosed with a pretty serious cancer. And so by then I sort of knew enough to know that like Tracy Walton and oncology massage was a thing in Boston. And I knew other massage therapists who did oncology massage. And so I sort of tried to refer this person out. And they said to me, no, you're my massage therapist. I want you. And I thought, oh, shit, I better get some training. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm from New Jersey. Uh, I started taking oncology massage training really with the idea of like, well, on the rare occasion that somebody comes into my office, I do, I was already teaching. I was also teaching special pops at a massage school at that point. So I was like teaching these things that I was only barely doing. I was like, oh, to be a better teacher and, for the rare occasion that somebody comes in, blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to take a class from Tracy Walton, but Tracy is another just transformative presence and another person who I feel like the second I was in the room with Tracy, I was like, oh, I'm bigger than I thought I was. This whole thing is bigger than I thought it was. Like, this is like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be here. Okay, okay, okay. And then, it just by word of mouth that grew that, people who are affected by serious illness or whose bodies don't match what whoever says they're supposed to match, they talk to each other and they find you. And I, in the same vein, I suddenly found myself sort of like specializing in trans folks. And I was like, I first of all, I don't even know what that means. Like I'm giving people massages. Like I'm not really doing anything. But I think that the skills that I learned, it is the skills that I learned in oncology massage and in really embracing the power of just relaxation massage and of being kind to a body that maybe doesn't feel like it's experienced a lot of kindness from both inside and without. Yeah, then it was a pretty quick slide for me, Then athletes were calling and I was like, oh, fine.
Oh, poor athlete. I assume you got a Massachusetts license when you finished your program. Okay.
I got a Boston license. When I finished my program, Massachusetts still had municipal licensing. So you had to get a license in whatever town you wanted to practice in. You could visit and like do if they had those arcane rules like if you do less than an hour a month in Brookline, you don't have to get a Brookline license, your Boston license will do.
Okay.
But then while I was still there, they switched to statewide licensure. And while I was there, they introduced establishment licensure.
I'm wondering, were you tied in at all? Can you speak to that push for licensure in Massachusetts statewide?
I was not. I will say that when we started, we were regulated by the board. We were covered, the board or whatever, I don't even know if it was an official board that covered massage therapy, was in charge of massage therapy, tattoo parlors, and psychics.
Oh,
Um, yeah, that was our category. Um,
I wonder
and
how the tattoo artists felt about that.
honestly, right? They were like, what? Uh, so, and establishment licensure was really, unfortunately, I think the way a lot of municipalities and states have come up with establishment licensure, I think it was a way to collect more money. There was no enforcement, there was no inspection. You had to send a floor plan of your office, but you could just draw it yourself. I sent a drawing that I really just did on the back of a piece of computer paper, and they were like, "Great, here's your license." So, there was very little sort of to it. I know that some of that has changed. I know some of it hasn't. Before I started working with Healwell, I really kept my head down. And again, I try to remember this and I try to encourage my colleagues to remember this because I think, again, I don't would never have considered myself a dumb person. I wouldn't have considered myself somebody who didn't care about massage therapy, but I had no interest in hearing about lobbying. I had no interest in, I pay my money for my insurance and I close my door and I do my practice. Like, I don't care who's in charge of whatever organization. I don't care who's doing whatever. Like, none of my business. So,
I try to hold a lot of compassionate energy for practitioners that are still in that space. I was there as well for a long time. So,
yeah.
yeah. So, how long into having your practice did kind of this introduction to Tracy Walton, which sounds like was maybe a key moment for you
Yeah.
really taking appreciation for relaxation work?
I think it was probably pretty soon. So in Massachusetts, you couldn't teach in a trade school unless you had been in that trade for 5 years. And so the second I had been a massage therapist for 5 years, I got a job as a teacher. And I know, and the first thing they were like, "You want to teach special pops?" And I was like, "Sure, I do." Um, so um, I am completely unqualified for this looking back. But at the time, I was like, 5 years, it's been forever that I've been a massage therapist. So I had already taken some intro stuff from Tracy or within the first probably 3 or 4 years. But really, it wasn't until I started teaching this and was like, I am standing in front of a classroom and I have no idea what I'm talking about. And oh, I'm reading this textbook and I'm like, you could really hurt somebody. Huh. So probably it was probably around that. I definitely I had been practicing for a minute or two.
Okay, sure. Well, at least five. Here in Arkansas, it's just two. So,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I know, I mean, in Virginia, the second you graduate, you can be a teacher. And many of the schools pull students right out of your cap and gown and into the classroom.
I'm here. I get the sense if you could wave a magic wand, is that one of the things you would change about entry level education?
I don't even care about that as much as I care about pedagogical training,
Hmm,
which again, I would have fought against. I did fight against. When I moved from Boston to Texas to teach in Texas, you have to have a training in adult learner styles, which again, you could do a real class in that, or you could take a like nothing class and check a box and whatever. So take that for what you will. But I mean, I think it really matters that most of us teaching in massage therapy education don't actually have any education training,
right?
are not, and it matters. I think that really matters. And so I don't think there's any magical thing that happens to you at 5 years or 10 years or 12 years or 40. Like I know plenty of massage therapists who have been doing this for decades who aren't that good at it or aren't self-aware, or it doesn't mean that they're a good teacher. Just because you're a great massage therapist doesn't mean that you're a good teacher. And I think that we've conflated those things. And I mean, I think probably a lot of professions do. Uh, but I think that particularly, I think we see this in massage therapy. So yeah, my magic wand would really be that we cared about teaching and pedagogy and made requirements about education around that.
Yeah, I'll buy in with that too. Did you ever own your own massage therapy school?
No, I worked for a big chain.
Gotcha. No, no, no. You said your first job instructing massage was special populations, right? Was that
Hmm.
with your alma mater or a different massage school?
No, no, I got hired by Cortiva Boston. And so at the time, Cortiva was buying up every small massage school they could find. And so the school that I taught at, I think that it had been Massage Therapy Institute. And I think that over the years, Cortiva had eaten them up. So the director of education there was phenomenal. She was a longtime educator and massage therapist. She had been at Massage Therapy Institute. And, her hands were really tied. They handed you a curriculum that was your curriculum. And it was wild. Yeah. And then Steiner bought Cortiva. And so while I was there, Steiner, which I feel like they're not even a thing anymore. And nobody, like, they were such a big bad boogeyman when they bought everything up. They were sort of the first to, they were buying up cruise ships. They owned cruise ships. And so they were going to do like, basically, I think their vision was that these massage schools would be pipelines for like massage therapists to like work on their cruise ships and work at their spas. And, they seemed like a big, terrible corporate monster to all of us. And they were. I mean, they totally were. They didn't, apparently they didn't have the staying power or they didn't really care about massage therapy that much because then they were gone.
Is there any way that your approach to massage therapy has evolved since then?
Yeah. I mean, certainly I think it's a thing. I believe in it now. There's that. I think I went like most people to massage therapy intending to, I wanted to fix people. I believed that people were broken and I wanted to fix them.
Yeah.
And I thought that I could put my hands on them and fix them in terms of physical injury and also in terms of, like we talked about earlier, like, why don't you like your body? Why are you so sad? Why won't you be in there? And that is just not a thing.
But it sounds like you really developed a knack, or you at least developed a reputation with these special populations. And you mentioned the trans community as well, that they found their way to you, I'm assuming through word of mouth. So like I don't know. I would agree with you that we don't heal anybody, but I mean, like it's clearly a skill that you developed that got clients like that to your door, right?
I think because I can sit still and shut up. And I think that's because of yoga and meditation. I think it really did. I sort of already had that, or I honed it certainly in a massage room. So yeah, I mean, I think that I don't mean to undersell myself. Like I think I was a pretty great massage therapist in the end. But I think that it is a really, again, I think it was Tom Myers who said to me once, and I always think of this. He said, at any given moment in your career, you should wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh my God, I should call everybody that I worked with like 5 years ago and just give them their money back because, oh my God. Right. And he said, and the day that that stops happening to you, you really stop evolving as a provider and as a person. And even the difference between me 5 years out when I walked into Cortiva thinking I could be a teacher from when I was in massage school, it was huge. I was a totally different provider. I think the thing that's hard is to sort of, it's just hard to not imagine there was still further to go.
All right.
The Society of Massage Archives invites you to join us for a virtual book club and discussion circle, a monthly 90-minute virtual deep dive into Dr. Patricia Benjamin's book, The Emergence of the Massage Therapy Profession in North America, A History in Archetypes. This isn't your typical book club. It's a conversation where we'll read the emergence chapter by chapter, reflect on the stories, struggles, and triumphs that shaped our profession, and explore how the past informs our current and future circumstances. Discussion circles are moderated by SOMA's Executive Board of Directors, with special guest hosts and Q&A sessions with the author, Dr. Benjamin. Registrants will receive access to the ebook format, courtesy of Sutherland Chan School of Massage in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Virtual meetings will be held on the second Monday of each month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, 4:30 p.m. Mountain, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Visit our social media on Facebook and Instagram, or our website at societyofmassagearchives.org to learn more and get registered today. We'll see you soon.
Also, if you look back over the decades, are there any major trends, movements, changes in massage therapy, or things that felt like really big turning points for us?
I feel like we keep missing those. I mean, I feel like ELAP, right? Is like all these smart people get together and they put together this thing and like here are some basic standards. Basic standards. The barrier to entry to making this sort of standard across massage therapy education, not high. And that wave just washed on by. I mean, I think that and I don't know, Kirby, I don't know what the answer is because, like I said, I want to hold grace and kindness and understanding for those providers that I was. I just want to do my job. I don't make enough money. I mean, I'm already scraping by. I'm already hustling for the next client. I'm thinking about, oh, I have colleagues who somebody drove a car into the downstairs of the building where their massage office was. And so the landlord had to close the whole building down for like 6 months. And so like then those people are like, I'm just scrambling to find an office, right? I'm just like, I have so many other things on my plate. And I think that as a profession, we all just have our heads down. We're all just so good at, I'm going to close the door and just like put my blinders on that I think that the big trends, the big turning points, the big things that I think I either thought or I think in retrospect, like things that even I missed. And I'm like, oh God, that happened. Wow. Why didn't anybody jump on that? Because we just did it. And, I think as we talked about earlier, that our attachment to, if I just do good work with good intention, that's enough. I think that right now we're living in an amazing moment in massage therapy. I mean, I think we are on the verge of extinction. I think that we are making ourselves obsolete. I think our failure to really step up and write the narrative for ourselves, especially with what's going on in like municipal licensure and, every state has its thing and there's deregulation happening in so many states. I think that as a profession, we are not standing up and owning the space and saying like, no, nobody else gets to write this about us. Nobody else gets to decide. We are the people who should be making these decisions. So, womp womp. That's my answer.
Okay, you kind of took the winds out of the sails for my next question, but I'm going to
Do it
ask
anyway.
anyway. How do you see today's massage profession compared to when you entered it? Do you feel we're headed in the right direction, Carrie?
Yeah, I don't. And I don't, I mean, I don't think we all have to like embrace working in a hospital. I want to be really clear because I think that that's often what people hear when I say we need to like stand in our place as healthcare providers. I don't care if you want to work in a hospital or not. There is more than enough room in the world for people who do not work, who provide massage therapy not in a hospital. I really feel like social work is a great model and that massage therapy doesn't have to reinvent this wheel. First of all, if you want to be a life coach, you can be a life coach. That's great. There are some training programs, there are some not training programs. Like you can just hang up your shingle today and say that you're a life coach. And you might do incredible work and help, really genuinely help people. I am not belittling the work that life coaches do at all. And your insurance won't cover your life coach, right? Hospitals aren't going to hire a life coach, right? But there are still tons of people who need life coaches, who want life coaches, and life coaches are doing a very valuable thing. If you want to go to school to become a social worker, you have to do serious, rigorous schooling. No matter what arena you want to practice in, no matter what focus you want to have, it is understood that like social work school is a big deal. There is a graduate level track. If you want to take a master's, if you want to do PhD, those are available to you. And there's like, clinical like support and observation and like mentoring that is just part of the program of like becoming a social worker. And you have the option, once you're done with that schooling, you can work in private practice and never take insurance. You can work in your house. You can only see children. You can only see people. You can only work with women. You can only work with trans folks. You can only work with gay folks. You can whatever. You can work in a hospital. You can work in palliative care in a hospital. You could work in, any number. You can only work with peds if you want to. You can work in private practice and take insurance. Like there are all these things that open to you. And nobody would say all social workers are the same or all expected to do the same thing. They're not. It's an incredibly rich profession with all kinds of like variety in where and how you can practice, how you can get paid, how you can bill or not bill. But I feel like massage therapy is not willing to do the work to have those options. I feel like we're just sort of crossing our arms as a profession and being like, well, we should have those options. That's not how it works. I'm sorry, and so I really think that we get wrapped around the axle about like comparing ourselves to PT and OT and or like if you're saying that we're healthcare providers, then you're like dismissing like the sort of like shamanic tradition and like, and I'm not. I think there really is room for all of that. And I think that the schooling has to be the foundational schooling has to be more rigorous and has to really bring all boats up with it. And I think we're so afraid that like somehow we're gonna like leave somebody behind. I don't think we're going to, honestly. I think there really is room for everything. But as a profession, if we don't kind of pull on our big kid pants and really look at foundational education and really making massage therapists providers that other healthcare providers can turn and say, like, yeah, I recognize what that person has learned, or even just I have some sense of what that person has learned, right? I don't know what you learned at the school you went to, Kirby. You don't know what I learned at the school I went to. It doesn't matter if we had the same number of hours, like the curriculum could be totally different. Whew, so I'm rambling now and sweaty. I think foundational education is the key, and I think that standard has to come up, and it has to come up a lot higher than it is in most states right now. And it has to really be something that we agree on as a profession, not just like state by state or like organization by organization.
Thank you. It sounds like you're a pragmatist. It sounds like you're a realist, Carrie. Would you feel that there is a reasonable hope that a massive change in trajectory could happen?
I There's an old Yiddish saying. I wish I could say it in Yiddish, but it's you can hope in this hand and shit in this hand and tell me which one fills up first, right? So I hesitate at the word hope. That's my hesitation. I think we can do it. I do believe in us. And I think that the key really is small massage schools, individual massage instructors. I really think that I don't think they have power. They don't know that they have power. And I think that they really have power. And particularly if they're willing to work together, they have massive power. And so I think that they can choose differently because if Massage Therapy Institute had sort of told me what massage therapy could be, I would have gone there. I would have done that harder program, you know? Um, and I think we're so afraid of students not coming, right? We're terrified of losing that because just like practicing massage therapists, massage schools are struggling, right? So everybody's worried about like the next buck. And I think we're underselling ourselves and I don't think we believe enough in like, I mean, what we do is amazing, Kirby. It's amazing. It is healthcare and it is this like magical other thing, right? It can be both of those things. And I really think that because we're so afraid, we just keep actually bringing the bar lower and lower. And not just like lowering the bar, like, oh, education standards are lower, but just lowering the bar of what we even expect or remember or think about the work that we do. And so I think there's hope-ish. Yeah, and I do. I think it takes providers who were living the life that I was living, picking their head up and calling their associations or just reading about what is going on in lobbying in our profession. And or, I there's an amazing provider in Virginia named Meg Donnelly who has been doing incredible work around municipal licensure that the county she lives in is just making a huge mess of massage establishment licensing because they don't know. And there's no massage therapist anywhere on any of these boards, right? And Meg is like out there like knocking on doors and like reading the minutes of these incredibly boring meetings um, and showing up for public comment. And so I don't think it takes that many of us showing up to own the narrative. And I think that that's really the thing. When we don't show up, we just let somebody else write the story. And if we keep doing that, there isn't really any hope for us.
You said something that sparked a synapse in my head,
Mm.
Carrie. I've often thought, and I know enough about myself to know I'm not the right person for this, but I've often thought to myself, if massage therapy in Arkansas is under our Board of Health, why are we just focusing on, applying for our technical advisory committee? Why don't we have a massage therapist on our board of health? If we have nurses, if
Yep.
we have, restaurant owners are on the board of health in this state,
Right.
optometrists, why isn't a massage therapist? applying to be on that board. And it's not for a shortage of, like you've talked about, it's not for a shortage of really mindful, thoughtful, wise practitioners in the state that could absolutely do a great job in that position.
I think you're right. And I think it's a hard sell. I mean, I get it. Part of why we become massage therapists is so that we don't have to go to stupid board meetings, right? I mean, that is really, I mean, when I started working with Heal Well, everybody would tease me that I was a unicorn because I'm a massage therapist who knows how to use a spreadsheet. That shouldn't be a unicorn trait. We can do both. We can have both things. It's going to take some of us like standing up for some boring gigs and like going to some boring meetings and, maybe paying attention to things that aren't really why we got into this. But it is why you got in, because you're going to lose what you got into this for if you don't do those things too. I mean, I think nobody enjoys brushing their teeth, but you brush your teeth twice a day or else you got no teeth left. So, we all got to like take a turn brushing our teeth. Again, this is another place where numbers is power. Like you said, you're not the only massage therapist in Arkansas. You're not the only massage therapist in Arkansas who cares about these things, right? Everybody has to sort of take a step up. And I think when everybody does, then it's not on the shoulders of one person and it won't feel as onerous.
Something, and maybe this is just to summarize what we're circling around anyway, Kerry, but right now, and not to take us too far into a religious discussion, but it's currently the season of Lent. And one of the major things that I meditate on during this time is, what am I leaving for the people who will come after me? You are
Mhm.
dust, you will return to dust. And that's especially something here that I want us to be cognizant of with Soma. And it sounds like this story that you're telling fits squarely in right there.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's true. I think it is yeah, I'll just go there, Kirby. We can go there. Like, I think this is the problem of humanity, right? Is that I'm only thinking about me. And again, because of course, I can only if ever experience the world from right in here, right? This is the only view I ever get. And so it's easy to imagine this is the only view. It's easy to dismiss myself as not connected. And I really believe that we are enmeshed, we are little cells in the fascia. Like we are not, you are not a single thing. Like your brain is not separate from your body. Your body is not separate from the planet. It's not separate from other animals and people. Like, I mean, we really, really are an organism. And I think it's easy to forget that. And I think it is to our detriment that we forget it. I think the more that we can think of ourselves as a part of a living, important, vital organism, the better we behave, the nicer we are, and the bigger our lives are. To circle back around, right? Like, we don't have to just live in the foyer. This place is giant. It's amazing. Like, wait till you see the kitchen. And so I think that we really, like, together, we can build this incredible home. But we have to do it together. We have to remember that it matters for all of us. And for those who come before us and after us, we are just a drop in this ocean, but it really matters. And your drop really matters.
I also like what you said a lot earlier about, we get told a fairy tale.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, when I get told a fairy tale, I feel like there's no burden, there's no incentive for me to carry on and keep the
Right.
torch going for the next generation. Is that kind of what you were getting at with that, Carrie?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think that like yeah, yeah. I think it's a very, a fairy tale is a very sort of selfish, self-centered, and a discreet story. Like the end, and they lived happily ever after, right? Boop. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. Either you got eaten by the witch or you didn't.
And it's
Um,
what you deserved.
and it's what you deserved, 100%, right? Cinderella's sisters danced to death in those hot shoes. That was what they asked for. And so I think that, yeah, I think it is a very, and again, the basis of the fairy tale is that intention is it, right? Because her heart was pure, animals landed on her shoulders, and ultimately everything good would happen to her through nothing really that she did herself. And nobody else mattered.
Yeah, X-nay on that.
Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it. Who wants glass shoes?
Yeah.
It's
No,
a bad idea.
it can't end well.
No.
I'm going to do something that I try not to do, Carrie, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want to ask you the same question again, but I'm going to rephrase it for you.
Okay.
If a massive overhaul is possible in this profession, is it probable?
I don't think a massive overhaul is probable.
Okay.
I do think a groundswell is probable and possible. And I think because overhaul to me sounds like a top-down job, right? I think what is possible and what I hope for in this hand um, is that individual massage therapists will demand more and will expect more from themselves, from this profession, from their organizations, from their representatives, from the massage board in their state, and will start being mouthy about that. I don't foresee the leadership, what we think of as leadership, right? I, the organizations, your representative, your massage board, they're not going to change anything. They don't really have any motivation to change anything. They don't have anything to lose. We have everything to lose. Individual massage therapists are the people who are going to lose in all this. And so I think that, yeah, overhaul, no, but groundswell, potentially.
Okay. Do we do we just need more iconoclasts in this profession? People who will just stand up and say, "This is effing wrong."
I mean, gosh, is that what it means to be an iconoclast? Because I hope it's not. Like, I mean, it more people who are just like willing to like rub the sleep out of their eyes. Like, I would say you don't even have to be an iconoclast. Like, you don't even have to be loud about it. Just like want more, demand more. I think, like I said earlier, like you can't even really make a living as a massage therapist in this country. Like, that's messed up. That's not okay. If you can't afford to pay your rent on a job that is potentially like blowing out your thumbs and like, that you have some sort of like time limit on because you have to work so physically hard, right? I mean, this is not, it's not, you deserve better, demand better. Um, and it's possible. It's really possible. Sure, iconoclasts, but like just less inertia.
Yeah, yeah. Ooh. Let's let's sit with that one. Yeah, I like that, Carrie. There are two things that I absolutely have to ask you about before our time runs out today. The
Yeah.
first, and you direct the chronology on this from your resume that you shared with me, work with OAR and the anti-racism work you've been doing for 25 years since February of 2001. And I've got to ask you to talk a little bit more about Heal Well.
Okay. The work with OAR and the anti-racism work, I think, came out of mindfulness. Cal and I, in addition to Heal Well, sort of our side hustle, because look, you can't even run a massage nonprofit and not have another job. We did a lot of work around mindfulness and bringing mindfulness into your workplace. And Cal does a lot of work about nonviolent communication. And so because of those things that we did, and we both were volunteers for OAR, which is Offender Aid and Restoration. They're based in Virginia, and they do lots of amazing things. So we worked with their team to do some team building work and some work around communication. And then we also volunteered to teach mindfulness. They have a program that's called the Community Readiness Unit, and it's for people who are incarcerated who are within about 6 months of being released. And basically, in the carceral system, you kind of get points for like taking classes and, good behavior and all kinds of things like that. And so our class was a thing that you could take for some good points. And also, it's a really hard place to be mindful. A jail is really noisy, it's very crowded, it can be a scary place. And particularly for a lot of the people who are incarcerated, the idea of sort of going back out into the world is both exciting and terrifying. And so mindfulness is a really good tool to have in your pocket. And so before lockdown, so for many years we sort of did some volunteer, and that might be wrong on my resume, that date. 25 sounds like a long time because I didn't even live in Virginia that long. But well before lockdown, we were volunteering and doing this and working with the staff of OAR. And then when COVID lockdown happened, in addition to, of course, not allowing people to physically go into the jails, it got ugly in there. We were trying to do our mindfulness class by Zoom. which is insane anyway, but in a jail, like when everybody, like there like is one laptop across the like community room in this jail, and like you can't hear anything, and like the people in our class were mumblers anyway, and like then add a mask on top of it and like social distancing, and like it was crazy. But one of the things that they sort of talked very openly about was the fact that since no one, like outsiders weren't really coming in regularly, like their cells were getting tossed a lot more often. Like there was just a lot more sort of overt and not overt racism and just power dynamics that were kind of, that seemed real messed up to us. And I mean, of course, what happened with George Floyd, like, I think was a massive wake-up call for white people to do something. And so one of the things that OAR asked us to do was to facilitate a white affinity group for some dismantling. Cal and I came up with the title Dismantling Racism, but to do some work on helping white people like show up to the fact that they were pretty racist, whether they knew it or not. All of us, we are. And so that was a fascinating thing. And so we would, again, it was during lockdown it started, so we'd meet by Zoom, and it was people from all different walks of life, many people who wanted to become volunteers with OAR. They had to do the class, but then also just people who ran other nonprofits or whatever. And I don't even know what to say about it. It was so hard. I won't say it wasn't fun, but it wasn't fun. Um, and yeah, it was really intense. And I think from that, I started doing a lot of work researching implicit and unconscious bias. And so the classes that Healwell teaches that I taught for Healwell around that, and the talks that I've given around that really were born out of my experience sitting in those Zoom rooms with other white people and just sort of watching, like, you really don't know that's a thing, right? Like, and again, like, so what do we do? How do I even introduce this? Like, how do you dismantle a thing that you don't even know is so fundamental to who you are? And so how do you make the unseen seen? So that is the work that we did with them. And Cal's done some work with other organizations around that, and I usually support that, often kind of in a behind the scenes way, but sometimes along with them. Yeah, I think it's really important work. And I think that, especially now, like there's some sense that like we got over that hump, that whole George Floyd thing. And that now we're like on the other side, and we're not. So I like to just remind myself and everybody else who listen that we're not. That's still a real big thing in the world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Kerry. Well, number one, I want to know where you found resources in order to prepare for that class, I guess. Or if there's any, other than, of course, the fantastic classes that Healwell has, if there are other resources you would maybe turn people who are interested in that kind of work onto.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that behavioral scientists are the way to go. There's a scientist who wrote a book called Behave, and he is a primatologist mostly. And he's written a lot of stuff about primates and humans, but I feel like, again, as somebody who was always kind of like I used to be an assistant zookeeper. We had lots and lots of animals. I grew up on a farm, so I've always been really into animals. And so I think, again, this idea that we're somehow different from or better than animals is a little foolish. And I think that people who study animals and animal behavior have lots to teach us about human behavior, whether they're doing it intentionally or not. So I actually did a lot of research about animal behavior. I think Rick Hanson's book, Neurodharma, and all of his books are really great. He's a meditation and mindfulness teacher and writer who specializes in the actual neurochemistry and neurobiology of what happens in your brain while you meditate or when you're mindful versus when you're not. And so he was really useful. There's a book by Dolly Chugg called The Person You Mean to Be, which I think is a phenomenal book. Because again, and there's also a book that I cite in that Healwell class called Blind Spot. And I really love these books because they really work very hard to debunk this idea. Like the second we sort of notice we have a bias, we like assign evil to that, right? I am a bad person, therefore. And I think they really do a great job. And again, it's one of the reasons I look to animal behavior, right? This is actually normal. This is like good news. Your brain is doing what brains do. And we can do better. So I really love those books, particularly because I think they work very hard to take a lot of the shame out of, like, this is just true. It isn't actually with a judgment. And so can you stop flagellating yourself about how bad you are about this, and you'll be way more effective at actually spotting it and interrupting it if you decouple it from this judgment about whether or not it means you're a terrible human.
Beautiful. Those are great resources. Thank you, Kerry. Tell me, if you can, the story of Heal Well.
So once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess. No.
Another fairy tale.
Right. Yeah, no, I think so I mean Cal founded Heal Well long before I came along and encountered it. We often joke like the last thing anybody needs is to start a nonprofit or to make another organization. So, Cal got out of massage school and saw these issues about hospital-based massage therapy and was like, I'll start a nonprofit and that'll fix them. So here we are. I don't know, 18 years later. I found Heal Well. I think Tracy introduced me to Cal, a blog that Cal was writing at the time. And I was like, oh, wow, this person really knows how to write and they sound pretty smart. I actually met Cal and Lucille Eddy, who was the original service director for Heal Well, at a conference. And I was really interested in what they were doing. And I guess I asked some probing questions that left them thinking, oh, we should have thought about that. And then I took a class with Cal. Cal used to teach a class that was just like a weekend class of like how to start a hospital-based program. And I took that class and I was like, this seems wicked complicated. And like what, how, and so I was sort of asking about like, if Healwell's already done this, like, what is the scalability of Healwell? Like how, is this, can you is this portable rather than like every massage therapist in America trying to reinvent the wheel and start their own hospital program? Like blah, blah, blah. And I went home and I thought, I'm going to wait 2 weeks and then I'm going to call this person and see if they want to give me a job. And after 1 week, they called me and offered me a job. I think what I brought to Healwell was just, I think the pragmatism that you talked about. I mean, I think that I was like, so what this is a nice little program that you have here. But what you're talking about are like huge issues that face massage therapy writ large, like and massage therapy education. And so how do we reach more people? How do we do more with this? And how do we like systematize this a little bit better? And that was really fun. And when I started with Heal Well, again, my position as I wasn't even the operations director. I was like Cal's assistant, right? It wasn't a full-time job. And so I did hands-on work for Heal Well too. So I got to do way more work in the hospital than I ever would have otherwise. And that was really eye-opening and exciting to me because it wasn't an environment I ever considered or thought I would want to work in. And I loved it. Another surprise from the universe. Thanks. What I learned in the hospital was this is applicable to everybody who practices, no matter where they practice. And, if I get to, beat another drum for Heal Well, it's that like, don't think it means you have to want to work in a hospital. Like you should get hospital-based massage training because it's going to change everything about how you practice, no matter where you practice. And it's going to make you such a better provider, no matter what you choose to do. From there, we grew really quickly, both in the DC area where we offer our actual hands-on service programs. And we were really fortunate. Really cool, smart people kept kind of coming our way. And when Lucille decided that she was ready to retire, and we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do without Lucille? Like Laura Bryant Erner showed up on our door and we were like, look at this incredible smart person. And Laura is the service director now and is another one of our instructors and does amazing work teaching people in the hospital and being an amazing advocate for massage therapists for the people who work for us and people who work in hospitals in general. And then Rebecca Sturgeon came along and was revolutionizing our education offerings, and then was joined by most recently Erica Clinton, who's now the education director. They're an incredible team, and again, people who have actual pedagogy and like curriculum development training, and which again, I will admit, like it's embarrassing, but like I've been teaching for years with none of that, and it makes a difference. Like, and so I really think that we have been really lucky. Oh, and then Corey came along, like Corey Rivera, like the amazing person who thinks like none of the rest of us think about strategy and about systems. Yeah, and about community. I mean, I believe that what Healwell is doing is creating a revolution. And it's the groundswell that we were talking about earlier. I think, the people who join our community, the people who take our classes, I mean, over and over again, the most meaningful feedback that we get, and we get all the time to me, is like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I found you all. right? And they don't just mean us. Like, I mean, I think at the beginning they meant Cal. And yay, I'm glad I found them too, right? They changed my life. But I feel like now Healwell is genuinely like a community of people who, not just the people who work for Healwell. I think that our online community and the people who are involved in reading and subscribing to our Substack and the people who come to our classes or come to our conference and I think that there is a real, I believe there's a genuine sense of community there and a genuine sense of belonging to something that's bigger than you. And I feel like it's a place where people have found, oh, I'm not the only person who cares about this. And that my voice will matter. And that it certainly is magnified by joining with other voices, but also my individual voice matters. And I think that that's definitely lacking in general in our profession. That's my story about what Healwell actually does. But I can also tell you about the three pillars and all the stuff that we like is on our website if you want me to do that.
No, that did a good job of what Healwell does, but it also, did a good job of summarizing the start, perhaps,
Yeah.
or the pathway along the way. And, you know, we love a little history lesson here.
Yeah. Well, and I think that if I left anything out, it was the research piece, and that research was also kind of an accident. One of the very first service programs that Healwell had, again, long before I was here, a doctor at the Children's National Hospital reached out and said, I want to do like some research about like how massage therapy helps pediatric patients in this particular way. Do you guys want to like do that with me? To Cal's credit and Lucille's credit and the therapists who worked on that study, that they really threw themselves into learning about research, reading research, learning how to conduct research. And they really showed up not just as like rubbers, but as people who were ready to participate actively in medical research. And by the time the money for the study ran out, all the other providers, the nurses, the doctors were like, well, you can't go now. We have to figure out because you guys are important. You're meaningful here. And I think that research that is conducted by and about massage therapists is really important. We recently published a review of massage therapy for palliative populations, and in more than half of the studies, the person providing the massage was not a massage therapist. In many of the studies, it wasn't even identified who the person was giving the massage. Like it mattered that little to the researchers, right? And I think, we all know that rubbing is good. There's plenty of research that shows rubbing is good. But I think this is another place where massage therapy needs to take the microphone. What is the value of massage therapists? What is the value of like this particular provider of this particular discipline in a broader medical sense or in a broader healthcare sense? That really matters.
It's a challenging nuance
Hmm.
to recognize and then also translate and talk to other people about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I hate when our time runs short, Carrie. This is always the worst. A lot of pressure on my shoulders now. Let me guide us into some closing thoughts, all right?
Yeah.
Tell me when you look back, when you take a moment, if we close our eyes and we take a deep breath, and we go back, we look over the time between where we're at today and the time when you started massage therapy school. When you look back on that chunk of time, what are you most proud of in your career?
Wow. I'm really proud of how Healwell has grown. I am really proud of the massage therapists that I do see who aren't just being what I was with their heads down. I mean, honestly, I am. I'm so moved when when I see the work that people like you are doing, when I think there are lots of us out there. And I think that I am, yeah, such a hard one. I think maybe my favorite little anecdote is years ago, Cal and I taught oncology massage in Tennessee, and one of the people in the class was a structural integration kind of guy. And one of the things that we emphasized and talked a lot about in our oncology class and our hospital-based classes is about the fact that deep pressure isn't just the answer, right? And that you can affect deep tissues with lighter pressure. And we spent a ton of time doing hands-on practicing the Walton 1 and 2, Walton 1 and 2. And this poor guy, like, he hated it. He was miserable. He was utterly, and just could not believe it. And he wasn't combative. He wasn't like mean about it, but it was clear that he was like, I just don't believe you. And 2 weeks after the class, we got an email, and the subject line was Carrie and Cal are the worst, or something like that.
Oh no.
Um, And he said, I have a client. And he had talked about this client in class that he does incredibly deep tissue with. She was like in her 80s. And he's like, that's what she likes. And like, she just loves it and blah, blah, blah. And like, that's what she asked for. And she'd be so disappointed. She would feel like I was saying she was frail or like something. So in the email, he said, so just to like prove to myself that you guys were wrong, this client came in this week and I didn't say anything about it. I did the entire session at a 1 and a 2. It was excruciating for me. I hated it. And at the end of the session, she said, I don't know what you did that was different today, but that was the best massage you have ever given me. So I'm real proud of that. But I feel like for me, I imagine, I hope that like there's actually a whole bunch of stories like that that I just don't know that those people didn't write to me. And I am proud, most proud that like I think Heal Well is sending those ripples out into the world, not just me, not just Cal, not just the people who work with Heal Well, but as this community grows, those ripples move and they move and move and move. And my hope is that there are just more and more people who are receiving mind-blowing care from their therapists, and that their therapists are receiving mind-blowing education and are having these mind-blowing experiences that they didn't think were possible.
To me, the thing that is standing out in that anecdote that is particularly potent to me is that to me, it's kind of like a mirror to your own journey with massage therapy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Resistance to being really good at relaxation work. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And there's got to be more stories like that that just aren't in
Yeah.
email form.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Carrie. Let me ask you, if you could record one historical figure's account of massage therapy, someone who's no longer with us, now deceased, who would you choose and talk about why?
Do I have to like know that they gave or received massage therapy, or like I'm just doing a thought exercise here?
I guess not. Run with it however you want to, Carrie.
Well, I mean, I remember like the 10 and a half seconds in massage school that was about the history of massage therapy that I took, and an inordinate amount of it was focused on Mesmer.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty interested in Mesmer. Like, I really think, well, I'm curious. I mean, I would love to know, like, were you really just a creeper? Did you like what did you think you were doing? I think, he's a great example of like the placebo effect's an effect, right? Like things happened in those rooms. And some people believed they were helped in profound ways. Like I mean, I know massage therapy cringes and doesn't want to own Mesmer as part of our history. But yeah, I'd like to know, like, yeah, were you just a shyster and you knew you were a shyster? Did you believe your hype? What did you think you were doing? And what were you feeling? Like, we go back to like being dismissive of energy work. Like, there was some crazy energy going on in those rooms. Like, what was happening there I would love to know what he thought he was doing.
Okay. An honest conversation with Metzger.
Yeah, an honest conversation. Yeah.
All right. I love it. I think
I
that's,
would rub his legs slowly so he'd have to tell me the truth, right? Wasn't that part of his deal?
you know a lot more than I do, Carrie. So
I hope that's a credit to your schooling that wasn't part of it.
no, we were taught Ling. A lot of
Oh,
emphasis
yeah.
on Ling in my
Yeah.
upbringing. So I think
Much
that,
more respectable version.
well, better than Kellogg, I would say.
We have such an illustrious past.
It is. We'll just leave that door ajar right there. That'll be our cliffhanger.
All right.
On the other side of that coin, who would you like to hear on this podcast next?
Not to make it all heal well all the time, but I think that Corey Rivera is a really fascinating person to talk to. And I think you guys already, you as Soma and you and Corey having conversations, as far as I know, already talk about this a lot. But I think that like I'm so interested in it. Never occurred to me, again, one of my implicit biases as my ableism is that like Corey is the person who pointed out to me, like, seemed like there's a lot of neurodiverse people in massage therapy. And I was like, oh, why, yes, yes. Now that you say that, that's really interesting to me. And that I think that this is I'm curious and interested in like this seems to me, again, from my ableist perspective, as a job that would be really hard if you were neurodiverse. And so why? What's happening that so many neurodiverse people are drawn to this? profession? Is it again just my like it's if we do the math, actually it's just the same percentage of neurodiverse people that do anything? I don't think so, but I'd be interested. And so I think Corey has some really interesting thoughts about that and is a fascinating person. I think Tracy Walton is somebody who has so much, not just of her own personal experience in like the way that massage therapy and particularly oncology massage has sort of changed, but also is somebody who learned at the feet of people who have even deeper and older knowledge. And I worry about those voices being lost, as people retire, as people step down, as, loudmouths of a younger generation step forward. I think Tracy would be a fascinating person to hear from. I also think one of those small world fun facts is that when I taught at Cortiva, we had a counselor on staff who's a social worker, not a massage therapist, who it just happens. I don't think I'm outing anybody to say is Tracy Walton's wife. She no longer does that work. She works in elementary school with kids, and I think kids are really where her heart has always been. But I'm really interested in people who are not massage therapists who work so intimately with massage therapists. Man, if the walls of her office could talk, whew. But also, like, what is that like? I'm really curious about what do people outside of massage therapy see about us that we can't see ourselves? Understandably defensive about, but in a way that makes us unable to really see and hear ourselves fully. So I would love to hear like from voices that aren't massage therapists about massage therapy.
I like especially what you said there at the end, because something to be mindful or at least aware of is when you're defensive, you're also unapproachable to a
Hmm.
degree. So let's keep that in mind, massage
Yeah.
therapists. Last two questions, Carrie. What are you up to these days? How could listeners learn more about your work, connect with you, or support what you're up to these days? Do you have anything to promote here?
Sure. I am, as you said at the beginning in my, sorry for such a mouthful of a bio. I wrote it down. I should have read it out loud. In addition to my other duties at HealWell, I am the head of fundraising and development. And, I think I want to put in a plug for all the ways that people can support the work that HealWell does, and that this is another way to vote with your dollars. I think that HealWell is doing important advocacy work as well as doing actual important work touching people who are ill. We really can't do that without fundraising dollars. So if I can just shamelessly plug. And again, I think that people think this is another place where I think we think our voice is too small. My sister is a $5 a month donor to HealWell. That is incredibly meaningful to us. That really matters. And that blends with other people who just are able to give what they are able to give. And so, not just for HealWell, but for anything you care about, never think that your gift is too small. It's not a thing. Your gift is a gift. I think really the thing I want people to do is come to HealWell Homecoming, which is in October. This will be our second conference. Every other year we hold a conference, and we call it Homecoming because we hold it in Arlington, Virginia, which is HealWell's headquarters, and where we used to make everybody come to us to take classes, but then the internet. And so physically it's homecoming. HealWell's staff lives all over the country, and so for us, we all gather together, and it's really rare for us to all be in the same place. But also, we really work to focus the speakers and the presentations at the conference on coming home into yourself and into this profession, and what do we all share, and what feels like home to us. And so we have some amazing presenters. Cindy Farrar will be the keynote speaker this year, and so I'm really excited to hear her talk. But we also just have a huge amount of fun. There'll be a reception, there's a possible sing along, there's all kinds of good things happening. And again, it is so rare, I feel like, to get to be a community physically in meet space together as a community. So I hope everybody will come. And you can learn all about that at healwell.org/homecoming or just healwell.org. You can always email me at kerry@healwell.org. I'm fascinated to hear what's going on out there. I'm here for it.
We love to be little magpies of information.
Yeah.
And that's Corey's.
Yeah.
But, overall, I think we're just those kind of people that like to hear, tell us what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
Last thing, is there anything we didn't cover that you'd like to add now The mic is all yours. Run with it for as much time as you'd like, Kerry.
Oh no, Kirby, you are awfully thorough. Um, yeah, no, like I said, I want us to know that we are worth more, and I want us to demand what we're worth. I want us to really know that what we do is really important work. It's really special work, and that just knowing that's not enough. You gotta like get out there and do the things and tell the world and really show the world that what we do is important.
Amen. All right, Kerry, I want to thank you so much. This has been I didn't expect this conversation, but sometimes that's best whenever that I don't know where we're going to go and where we're going to end up. This has been really delightful and insightful for me.
Thank you. Me too. I have to admit, I was just saying as I logged on, I don't know what I have to say about this. Turns out quite a lot.
Yeah, imagine that. You have thoughts, and they're worth hearing and sharing. Yes.
Thank you so much, Kirby.
Thank you, Kerry.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider donating to the Society of Massage Archives so we can continue to bring you this episode and other resources to fulfill our mission of preserving and integrating the historical knowledge of massage therapy's professional advocacy and traditional techniques to guide and enrich our contemporary practices. Thank you. You are listening to the Hands of History podcast, a production of the Society of Massage Archives. You can learn more about the Society at societyofmassagearchives.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Do you know someone whose hands have helped shape the practice of massage? If you or someone you know would make a great guest for future episodes of this podcast, please email the Society at societyofmassagearchives at societyofmassagearchives, all one word, @gmail.com.